tourist skull with the hybruncular apparatus attached and lower jaw, all parts are there. And the nares is on there. It's actually, I think in our lab manual it actually says nasal sac, but basically the nose would sit right in here in these guys. So just to kind of orient to where they are. And again, these are neotenic. They would have a maxilla if they were a metamorphosed salamander, and you could actually see a nares there. The orbit is the region where the eye sits, and again, it's kind of unimpressive, but it would be kind of in there in these guys. And the oval window is the area where it's a hole into the otic capsule where the columella or stapes sits, and it's kind of hard to see on these dried skulls. I'll show you when we get to the chondrocranium in a moment. Okay. And the teeth, there they are. They've got teeth, and these are homodont teeth, meaning that they all look the same, more or less. Okay. So those are general features. For the dermal skull roof, the bone at the front of the upper jaw right here would be the premaxilla. Okay. And on these guys, there's kind of a little prong of that extends up onto the skull. There's a frontal. It doesn't really show very distinctively from the parietal, but there it is. It's these bones here and here on either side. Okay. And then parietals back here, here, and here. And then the squamosal is this strap-like bone that runs down along the quadrate here. So it's this little guy here. Okay. Dermal palate, again, maybe I should have gotten. Does someone want to go grab another Necturus real quick that doesn't have all the hybruncular apparatus there, because it's kind of in the way. So if you look here, you can see the palate or the roof of the mouth. And at the front of the palate, there's this series of teeth on bones right on either side there. And that bone would be the vomer. Yep, so that's the vomer there and there on either side. You know this is very small, but there we go. And then the pterygoids are the big plates of bone on the side. So this is the pterygoid here. Okay, I should stop in front of Jackie because she's got the video going. That's going to get posted with this little guy here. And then the big plate of bone right in the midline, what would that be? The parasphenoid, exactly. Okay, so those are the palatal bones, dermal palatal bones. For the lower jaw, the main bone carrying the teeth of the lower jaw is the dentary, so that's this here. There's a little set of teeth that you'll see are kind of distinct from the main group of teeth, and they're carried on a bone that actually lies on the inside of the lower jaw here. And that bone is called the splenial, but someone pointed out to me that in the colorful lab guide, they're calling that actually the coronoid bone, just to be confusing. Is that you guys that pointed that out? Yes. And then lastly, at the back of the lower jaw, there's a separate little bone kind of in here that also wraps around onto the inside. And we call that the angular. Again, the other lab guide is calling that the prearticular for some reason. And I think there's a big homology debate there. You can see the suture right there. Okay. There's a homology debate that I'm not familiar with about what to call those, but we're sticking with this. Okay, splenectocranium. So that was all dermatocranium. We're just looking at all those bones. The splenectocranium, we have the mandibular arch, and these guys are very poorly ossified. The mandibular arch, there is a quadrate bone, and it basically lies underneath the squamosal in this region. So you can see a little bit of it kind of peeking through right here. And that's the quadrate in that area. Okay. And then the lower jaw, the mandibular cartilage or Meckel's cartilage, is completely unossified. So there is no articular bone in these guys because there's no ossification. But they do have a cartilage in there inside the lower jaw. For the hyoid arch, the upper part of the hyoid arch is the columella, or stapes. And that's a little bone that sits here in the oval window of the otic capsule. And it braces itself against the squamosal. That's right in there. Okay, that's this little guy right there. Okay. So that's the upper part of the hyoid arch. Okay. And then the lower part of the hyoid arch is formed by the ceratohyal and hypohyal elements, and they don't look very impressive, but this kind of region in here, these would be the ceratohyals and the hypohyals. Okay. Again, not very impressive looking, but ceratohyals and hypohyals in the cartilage here. And then what's left are the branchial arches, and there's basibranchials 1 and 2, ceratobranchials 1 and 2, and epibranchials 1, 2, and 3, and they don't show up very well on here for sure. Yeah, these dried ones, they usually don't show up so well. Look for them as best you can, but I would feel very bad to stick a pin there and ask you to tell me that it's like epibranchial number 2, but just be kind of aware of what's going on with the branchial arches in these guys. And lateral laryngeal cartilage is in there because it's in the book. That's just the cartilage on the side of the larynx, and we don't have it in any of our preps. Okay, then we get to the chondrocranium. I'm taking a while with the nitrous, but I guess that's okay. So the chondrocranium we've got in these plastic blocks, which makes it really hard to point at things. But remember, there are bones that ossify in the chondrocranium in bony vertebrates. And in particular, you can see them here, down at the occipital region, there's bones on either side of the occiput that ossify, and those would be the x-occipital. So those two little guys down there, right here. Okay. The occipital condyle is the rounded knob for articulating with the first vertebra. There's a pair of them. The basi-occipital arch is this arch that runs across the base there. And then the synotic tectum, if we look on the dorsal side, you can see a little bit of cartilage that runs across between the two otic capsules, and that's the synotic tectum. Do you see that? Okay. Right in there, little bar of cartilage. Like that, connecting the two otic capsules together. Alex, do you see that at all? Kind of like this.
Okay.
Yep. See that? Yeah, okay. And cool. These cartilages that run along the base of the skull here on either side of the notochord are the paracordals. And then as you extend forward, I'm following along. Oh, well, I guess not, but I'll do it anyway. These bars going forward are the trabeculae, these bars of cartilage there. And those join together at the front end by the trabecular plate or ethmoid plate, which is this one that connects across the front here. Oh, and the trabecular horn is the little prong then that sticks out towards the front. This little guy here. I skipped over the otic capsules. So the otic capsules sit over on the side of the paracordals, and the otic capsules have within them ossifications, and they show up kind of as a clearer area in here, but there's one at the front and one at the back of the otic capsule, and the one at the front of the otic capsule is the anyone? Here's the front and the back of the otic capsule. There's ossifications there and there.
Is it the paracordal?
The paracordal is the cartilage there, but the bone that ossifies at the otic capsule is the prootic in front and the opisthotic in the back. Okay. And the operculum is on the list, and it's not something you're going to see, but just be aware of it. It's a little piece of cartilage that sits in the oval window, and it falls out in these preparations. Different than the operculum in the bony fish, the big flap over the gills. And the nasal capsule doesn't really show up on these preps at all, but what you can see is this thing that sticks out to the side that was behind where the nasal capsule would be, and that's the anteorbital cartilage. So that separates the orbit from the nasal region. There's this little prong sticking out to the side. There and there. Okay. The other thing, this is not part of the chondrocranium technically, but on our preps, the other thing that's present is the palatal-quadrate cartilage in the quadrate bone. So if you look off to the side here, you can see this cartilage and then an ossification, and that's the quadrate bone in the palatal-quadrate cartilage. So you can see where the jaw joint would be. It's right there. Okay. Here, captured for all posterity. Okay. And you're the backup filmmaker. All right, right there. This guy. Okay, cool. So that's the Necturus, and I agree they're not the most beautiful skulls, but they're still cool. They've got a lot.